When the narcissist is faced with stress and anxiety and frustration, the narcissist transitions sometimes, depending on the extent, the narcissist transitions sometimes into a borderline state. His defenses shut down and he emotionally dysregulates. If the environment, the frustrating environment persists, the narcissist transitions to a primary psychopathic state. He becomes a psychopath. The borderline transitions to a secondary psychopathic state. So both the borderline and the narcissist, they have a low frustration threshold, low tolerance for frustration. And this leads the narcissist to desperate attempts to eliminate the source of frustration. In the case of the narcissist, frustration does breed aggression. But in healthy people, the aggression is intended to signal displeasure, discomfort, and modify the other party's behavior. When you're frustrated, and if you're mentally healthy, relatively speaking, your aggression would be intended to change the behavior of the person who is frustrating you, or to modify the environment in a way which would reduce frustration. It's not the case with the narcissist. The narcissist aggression is externalized. It's reckless. It often culminates in verbal or physical violence. And this is the process known as coercive snapshotting. The narcissist aggression is intended to try to force you to conform to his expectations of you, to try to force you to coalesce with, to merge with the internal object in his mind that represents you. He wants you, the narcissist wants you to stop existing outside his mind and to fuse symbiotically with the object in his mind that represents you. And this way, of course, to eliminate the frustration. And if you refuse to shut up, if you refuse to succumb, if you refuse to be submissive, if you refuse to be obedient, if you insist on your independence and personal autonomy and agency and self-efficacy, if you walk away, in any of these cases, the narcissist would try to act in a way that would either eradicate you, obliterate you, eliminate you, annihilate you, or coerce you into behaving the way he wants to. And this could culminate and escalate into physical violence, definitely. Narcissists perceive frustration as emanating from the inside. You remember that narcissists are incapable of perceiving external objects. They're incapable of conceptualizing the separateness and the externality of objects. So as far as the narcissist is concerned, you don't exist out there. There's no external object that is you. There's only the internal object inside his mind that represents you. And he goes on interacting only with the internal object. So if you frustrate the narcissist, he doesn't perceive it as coming from the outside. He misperceives it as coming from the inside. And his aggression is actually an attempt to reduce dissonance and anxiety by somehow modifying you so that you again become a compliant internal object. It's an internal inside job. It's nothing to do with the outside. Walking away won't do the trick, because narcissists interact exclusively with internal objects. They dehumanize you, and then they objectify you. You become a figment. You become an avatar, an introject in the narcissist's mind. So the narcissist can't just up and walk away. Say, you're frustrating me. I'm out of here. I don't want to be exposed to your frustration, so I'm out of here. He can't do that because he carries you in his mind, and you keep frustrating him from the inside. Unless and until he gets rid of you psychologically, via entraining or brainwashing, physically, through violence, or by coercing you to behave in a way which does not challenge, undermine, and contradict the internal object, unless he accomplishes one of these three solutions, the frustration, the nagging frustration, is going to persist because it comes from the internal object in his mind that represents you. Your avatar is attacking him from the inside, like some kind of Trojan horse or fifth column. Now, I mentioned that the narcissist transitions to a borderline self-state under conditions of extreme duress, stress, and tension and anxiety. The borderline self-state is impulsive and destructive. That is the famous narcissistic rage attacks, the temper tantrums. They are actually a borderline self-state, not a narcissistic self-state. So more appropriately, it wouldn't be called narcissistic rage, but borderline rage or dysregulated rage. Coffee in the morning. The psychopathic cold state, which in the narcissist is a primary psychopathic self-state, the classic psychopath, is called premeditated, ruthless, callous, relentless, inhumanly disempathic, no empathy there. Both the borderline state and the psychopath, the primary psychopath self-state, are fantasy-oriented because narcissism is a fantasy defense gone haywire, gone awry. So everything is infused with fantasy. Even these self-states are fantastic, and they involve impaired reality testing. But the psychopathic self-state in the narcissist is truly terrifying. Think Chris Watts. It's a truly terrifying state. It's preceded by a covert state. So when the narcissist transitions under stress, under anxiety, as a result of frustration, mortification, extreme narcissistic injury, when he transitions to a borderline state, and then from a borderline state to a psychopathic state, he goes through a covert phase. There's a covert phase, like a bridge between the borderline and the psychopathic state. And during the covert phase, he appears to be completely normal. He suddenly becomes totally normal. He doesn't rage. He's not angry. He seeks consensus. He compromises. He's caring. He may even be loving. He is perfect. He's a perfect ideal partner. He's a bit ponderous, a bit brooding, a bit spiteful, somewhat passive-aggressive. There are hints of sarcasm and bitterness. He's determined, but he is evasive. He denies that there's any problem. He's overly polite, pseudo-civility. He's pseudo-civil. He's affected. He is ostentatiously obedient, as I said, or caring, and so on. And throughout this act of normalcy, the mask of sanity, the narcissist keeps imagining the final act of your destruction. He goes into detailed planning, obtaining all the necessary tools. And I'm not talking necessarily about physical violence. It could be, for example, undermining or destroying your career. It's a kind of revenge fantasy that doesn't necessarily involve your physical disappearance, but definitely involves inflicting enormous damage on you, ruining you. It could be, for example, traumatizing you in a way that you will never recover from. And this is done sometimes very covertly, sometimes very overtly, and it's very open to misinterpretation. The victim often feels that she has had the upper hand, or he has had the upper hand, but that's a mistake. The trauma is there, eating away at the innards of the victim, like some kind of parasite. So all these revenge fantasies require a covert phase where the narcissist hides and disguises his intentions, his detailed planning, his premeditation, his white-hot rage, his extreme hatred, his conversion of your idealized object into a persecutory object. You become an enemy. And his determination to destroy you for good. The borderline state is either sudden, eruptive borderline state. There's calm there's no calm before the storm. The borderline suddenly transitions into a temper tantrum, or begins to break objects, or this kind of thing. So this is the eruptive borderline self-state. And narcissists are famous for it. This is the famous narcissistic rage or temper tantrums. But there's another option, another possibility. There's a borderline self-state which is not eruptive. There's no calm before the storm. There's just a transition to the storm. But there's another self-state, another variant of borderline self-state, where there is gradual escalation. In this particular variant of the borderline self-state of the narcissist wants to provoke a fight. He attempts to prick you, to needle you, to provoke you, and this is projective identification. He is spoiling for a fight. He is looking to create a situation or an environment which would accommodate his alloplastic defenses, where he could blame you for starting everything. So this is more of a covert strategy and very typical of covert narcissists. To summarize, when the narcissist is under duress or stress or anxiety or tension, humiliation, injury, mortification, narcissist transitions to a borderline self-state. In the borderline self-state, it could become eruptive after a period of calm that is like the calm before the storm, or it could become escalatory, it could escalate. It could create the preconditions for a fight where his misconduct would be legitimized by your reactive so-called abuse. And then most narcissists, not all, transition to the psychopathic self-state. And this is where the danger lies. In the psychopathic self-state, it looks as if the conflict is over, as if everything is back to normal, as if you have nothing to worry about, as if things have been resolved, a consensus has been restored, peace, truce, and ceasefire have been declared. But all this time, the narcissist is planning his revenge, his payback, and your destruction. He's a great actor, and he can deceive you into a kind of complacency. This is what happened with Hamas and Israel, by the way. Okay. Now, the narcissist's alloplastic defenses. Alloplastic defenses, to remind you, is when you blame other people for your own behavior, the consequences of your behavior. You don't accept them, you reject them. You say, they made me do it. I acted this way because I had no choice. They discriminated against me, they abused me, they attacked me, I'm the victim. That's alloplastic defense. The narcissist's alloplastic defenses justify the narcissist's aggression and even violence. There is an external locus of control. The narcissist attributes his motivations, misattributes his motivations to the others, to other people. He outsources his motivation. He says, you made me do it, which is like saying, you controlled me. It's an external locus of control. And this aggravates the antisocial behaviors because the narcissist begins to perceive this whole thing as an issue of survival, a question of survival. If he doesn't prevail, he's going to be eradicated, he's going to die. So he must win. Winning becomes the be-all and end-all. And then if he fails to win, he sinks into an extreme depressive or dysphoric mood, often accompanied by substance abuse and withdrawal or avoidance from reality. Routines, daily routines or professional routines are impeded and disrupted, and so on and so forth. The narcissist basically falls apart, disintegrates, and transitions gradually into a pre-psychotic stage. I've discussed this in other videos. Now, narcissists often use verbal and psychological abuse and violence against those closest to them. Intimacy breeds abuse and aggression in the narcissist because it's very threatening.